You can see in my career, I've not been a big mover.
I see that.
Not a big mover. I've not done a big. When I first started, I thought I was going to run the world. And and then I decided when you get too big to know all your kids and meet people.
Yeah. All right. I've got 5 o'clock. Are we ready? Okay. Darren, would you mind to open us in prayer?
Lord, again, we thank you for the opportunity that you've given to us to be able to come together here and do this Sunday school. Again, Lord, we pray that each and everything that will be discussed here this evening will be beneficial to the school. And the decisions that will be made, that we will strive in the future to make the best place for our kids, our staff, and our administration. All things and all decisions that are made will benefit us. Again, Lord, be with each and every one of us. Forgive us our sins. In Christ's name, right?
Amen. Okay, so the second item on the agenda is to approve the assurances and GEPA statement.
This is what Ms. Bradbury and Ms. Jones prepared, finished up, and they're just simply a statement of assurances that need to be done and sent in for the 30th day of June, and we'll ask you that somebody make a motion and approve those, and they're just basically the same thing as that you all have done in the past as far as that goes. If you'd like to ask any questions about it, should be the one to ask. So, but I'd ask that you all approve that, please.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to consider the high school custodian applicant.
Yeah, so we had an applicant, Curtis Honeycutt is his name. He's got kids that attend school here. He's worked for Walmart for 20 years doing janitorial work, and I interviewed him, and he's excited about coming and doing something different. So I think he'll be a good member of the staff.
And we've had 2 openings we finally got one of them filled. Ms. Bradbury filled one of them, and then we've had that one over there for a while, and that really hadn't had anybody this summer because he left and didn't come back, or he resigned. I mean, not saying like he just quit, but he didn't finish out the 12 months is what I'm trying to say.
And Curtis, he wants to get Walmart a 2-week notice, so that's why I wanted to speak to y'all about it tonight. That way, he gets his time.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Okay. Any other items that we need to take care of on the normal?
No,
Okay.
no, sir. That's the only ones I know of.
Okay, well, with that being said, we will move into our question and answer session with Mr. Blevins, who is the next candidate for our superintendent position. We appreciate your willingness to continue to serve very much. It's been a blessing to have you. This format is something that the board felt was a good idea to have this open forum, ask questions to you here in front of the community and live on YouTube, so they can maybe get to know you a little bit better on a personal level.
No problem.
So we'll do about 30 minutes in here if that's what it takes, and then we'll go into executive session and talk with you a little bit further.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'll start us off with the first question. No particular rhyme or reason or order to these questions, just kind of random, but first question, what does student success look like to you?
Well, student success for me would be preparing them to in today's world to join the workforce, either through going to college or going to some kind of life skill that they. I think that in America we always try to educate everybody to be doctors, and I think that's the rest of the world doesn't do that, and that's how come it looks like we're behind all the rest of the industrialized countries in the world in education. I don't really think that's true. I just think that we try to prepare our kids for the workforce, either through college, going to college, and I think that you can academically be successful, but I think you also have to be able to meet people and to talk to people and look at what you want to do, to be able to communicate, what you would like to do, and I just feel like that's the main thing, is prepare our kids for whatever's coming after they get out of high school.
Very
or
good.
college.
Very good. Thank you. All right.
All right. Describe a time you led significant change in the school system. What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them?
Both the schools that I was at the longest period of time, both faced challenges. I went to Midland 30 days after they voted to consolidate. They had a 90-something% vote to consolidate, and they really didn't like each other. And that was, after I saw the vote, I really didn't understand that. But then there were also, you have to understand, Midland was made up of mostly independents, about a third of White County, and they had just a few sections of Cleveland County. And so the people in White County kind of felt like that Pleasant Plains hadn't done them right. They'd always put the oldest buses down there, and they'd be on, and the ones on the hill always wanted, on the mountain, the floral part, wanted to go to the south side, snuck out on you. And the ones up around Huff, I mean, it was just a bunch of different communities. The hardest place I've ever worked. It was trying to get them all to get together and pull them all together, and and then of course the board did a real smart thing before I got there. They had everything laid out in the consolidation agreement on who was going to get what job. Just based on seniority and certification and all that kind of stuff. And then I had 10 board members, and sometimes they didn't all want to go with the consolidation agreement. You know what I mean? And anyway, that was. But once we got that out of court, it took 2 years to get out of court. Went to the Supreme Court, and but once we got out of court, everything kind of settled down, and we became both the schools were small schools. One of them had 199 kids, the other had 301. When they consolidated together, the first year we had 545, which was a boost, because that meant we got a lot more funding. Plus, we got consolidation funding on that too, and so it was. It turned out really well. I spent 13 years there. Two reasons I left. The last year I was there, I spent 88 days on a bus. I had 15 bus routes over the worst roads in the country, and I had 700 kids, and we were growing every year but one we grew, and that's when we graduated. The class had about 70 in it one time, and got a kindergarten class had 45, so I was stressed out that year because you lost funding, you didn't get it. But anyway, side point. But anyway, it was it turned out everything kind of, and I asked for a $5,000 raise, which was half what the other superintendents made my size all the way around, and they gave me $900. Come home at night and told my wife, I said, I'm going somewhere, and she said, where? I said, I don't know yet, but somebody's going to hire me, and they did, and I was at 25 years at that point in time. So Augusta, that's the first place they ever used, and they hired me. They had their own unique problems. They had a death at a track meet, blamed on kids, and it was kind of hard to overcome. Harding Academy is running the bus through the middle of our district and picking up kids, and my goal was to shut them down. 3 years, I shut them down in 2 years. They couldn't afford to ride the bus anymore. So I felt like we all came together, and we was a mixed district. We took in Cotton Plant, and I guess it's 05 or 06, so we took them in. 27 miles away, but the bus wasn't a problem because nobody lived anywhere except in the city. You had like 1 or 2 kids lived up. So same way with Augusta, I only had 2 buses. That's one reason I went to Augusta, I only had 5 bus routes. So I knew I wouldn't have to drive a bus very much anyway. But they both had their own unique problems, and I felt like I made a difference in both places. And
saying is you can drive a bus.
Do what?
I said, what you're saying is you can drive a bus.
I'd let my license go, but I
Oh.
promised the bus mechanic that if right things happen, I'd see if I couldn't get mine back where I could, where I could actually sub for him a little bit once in a while.
All right.
So, as a superintendent, what is your why, your driving force? What motivates you to strive for excellence and continue serving others in the field of education?
I think.
Remember, you have 30 minutes.
I think really, I think that I come from my family. My mom and dad, my mom and my stepfather. My dad was killed when I was 7, car wreck in Salem. My mom, she spent 6 months in the hospital. They thought they were going to have to take off both their legs, and they didn't. She just got up out of bed, went and found her another man, and got married, and had 3 boys after that. So my stepfather probably was one of the main reasons that I was ever driven to do much of anything. I mean, he always believed in going to work. You show up for work, and he said, I don't care how stupid you are, if you show up to work and you work hard, you'll make it something out of yourself in this life. And I really believe that he probably had more of a driving force on me than anybody else. And my mother, she's still alive. She's 92-year-old. She called a while ago with my brother and told me to tell her that she was sick and she wanted me to come by and see her. So when I get through with this board meeting, that's probably where I'm fixing to head. But anyway, I'd say that would be just a drive. Of course, I've always been a competitor, and I don't like to be second at anything. I've got a brother Fred that's not too far from here, runs a bus in one of the Middleborough district, and he's been very successful. Probably the best finance mind in the state of Arkansas. I don't care. No, I don't think anybody will even debate that. And I'm competitive. I don't like to get beat. I don't academically. Sports-wise, I want to be competitive in everything. And my academics, everywhere I've been, the 2 places I've been the longest, my sports programs got better and my academics got better. And I understand that a lot of people, they say, well, it's not all about academics. It's about pride. It's about pride. When your kids don't have to look, when you say, where are you from? And they say, I'm from Norfolk, and they can look up at you. When I went to Augusta, when somebody had asked those kids where they were from, they dropped their heads. And that killed me. That gave me part of the drive that I wanted, and they didn't do that when I left there, I promise you that. They did not do that. And I think the same way with Midland, both of them were small, both of them went together, they were small schools, and we became the bully on the boat. All of a sudden, we weren't the smallest people, we were the biggest people. And I think that was a drive. I've always been driven to try to accomplish whatever I set out to do. I always said there was 2 things I thought I could do better than anybody else, and one of them was run the school district, and the second thing was fish. And I'm really questioning fishing or running the school district anymore in my old age. But I think you've got to have a job you enjoy going to every day. I think you've got to go every day, and if my secretary can tell you, yesterday was the first day I've missed since I've been here. And I know right now you're paying me on a daily basis, but that really didn't have anything to do with it. But I show up for work. I'm driven. I expect my people to do the right thing and use common sense. And I think my parents, they were the driving force in my life as far as. If I've ever done anything good, they're the reason. If I've done something bad, that's all my fault. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
It did. And you didn't take 30 minutes, so good job.
So how do you build trust and maintain strong relationships with the school board, staff, families, and the community stakeholders?
Well, I think to start out with the community, I think the first thing you do is when you, and I've been guilty of doing that this year, when I see somebody with a red hat on, I try to go introduce myself and ask them something about themselves. And, sometimes I found out that other people wear red hats except for just for people at Norfolk. But anyway, I think you try to meet as many of the people that you can meet in your community. And I don't care if they're wearing a pair of overalls or a suit. It don't make me any difference. I think that you've got to have you can't ignore parents, and you want to let them know what services you can provide them. And I think that's important too. It's providing services for your parents, as many of them as you can. With your principals, I've always tried to hire strong principals, and I let them run the place. I mean, as long as they stay within bounds, you know, they're going to hire the people. They're going to hire who they, within reason, who they want to hire, and they're going to run their buildings, and I'm going to hold them accountable for that. And I want them to hold me accountable. If I'm messing up somewhere, I expect them to say, hey, you're out of bounds, or you need to do this, or I wish you'd do that, or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't understand. I've told Miss Bradbury, I said, some of this new stuff I don't understand. And she's going to help. She helps me with that. Her and Miss Jones both have, and so will Brooke. I'll have to relearn some of this stuff. But I think that, and then with your staff, I think, don't treat them. Do not treat them like they belong to you. I mean, you treat the staff with dignity. I don't care if these friends. I made my first friends made right here in this lunchroom. I love them ladies. I love them, and I think you've got to. And the one thing about me as a superintendent, I will tell you this: that if somebody spills popcorn in the lobby, I'm not looking for a janitor. I'm looking for a broom and a dustpan. I mean, I'm not. Hey, you need to go. I mean, that's not me. And I think with the board, the one thing you cannot do with the school board ever is lie to them. If you lie to them, then they'll never trust you. And you can't live with a superintendent as a board that lies to you. Just can't live with that. I might have to tell you something that's bad. You really don't. I don't want to tell you, and you don't really want to hear. But sometimes you just have to do that. You have to say, hey, and there's, nobody's going to be perfect. There's decisions I'll make that you'll say, hey, what the crap did you do this for? Why in the world did you do that? Or that, and maybe if I can't explain it, then, but I try to use common sense with everybody, with kids. I try to meet as many people as I can, and I'm going to. I want to try to meet as many. I promise you one thing. I spent 13 years at both places that I've been as a long-term superintendent, and I knew the kids, I knew the family, and if you don't think Augusta wasn't hard to pronounce some of the names, you're wrong. And I'm not trying to be mean about that at all. It's just hard, and I think sometimes you just, when I left there, I knew where they came from, I knew who their parents were most of the time, I knew who they were associated with, and so I think that. You got it. The more you can find, I knew where they lived, and you can tell a lot about that too. You can tell a lot about about the kids, why they act like they do sometimes. Why does Johnny come in? Well, for one thing, he don't know if Mama's going to be there with Daddy when he comes in, and if that sometimes that explains a lot for a kid sometimes. But I think you have to trust your board to do the right thing, and I think that you have to trust your superintendent to do the right thing.
Okay.
So Richard, you talked about the process of setting expectations, also the accountability piece. So with that said, how do you drive continuous improvement amongst your staff?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
How do you drive continuous improvement amongst your staff?
Amongst your staff, well, for one thing, you try to give them the best professional development that you can give them. You try to give them literacy people or math people or coaches or something like that, and you have to make sure that they are, they're not sleeping at the back of the room when this is taking place. When your professional development stuff is taking place, and I think that. You just have to trust them, and you have to evaluate them. I think they've got to be evaluated. I think you have to go in there and you have to be constructive. I think you have to give them constructive criticism at times. And it's kind of like the old literacy coach that my wife, she was a literacy coach, and the way she would do things, she'd say, always give them 3 positive things for every negative thing that you can give them. And so you might, and I found principals sometimes and teachers, it's really hard to give them 3 positive things for the 1 negative thing. But you try to be as positive as you can. And the whole thing is, if they don't perform, if they're not performing, then eventually you're going to have to either make them better or you have to get rid of them. I mean, that's just the way, that's my philosophy. That if you can't, if you hire, that's why I don't hire teachers. I'm not hiring teachers. Because if they hire a teacher and they don't work out to suit them, then they got to either make them better or what? They got to get rid of them. And sometimes that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do. But I think you try to keep your staff together. You meet, I think a lot of times when you've got an elementary staff and a high school staff, even though it's close, they don't have much intermingling. They need to intermingle some. They need to be some district-wide meetings, and I don't know if they've done that much here or not, but I district-wide meetings. But I think that's something that needs to take place once in a while. That answer your question?
All right, anybody else have any additional questions? All right, we'll do the same as we did the other night. Open it up to the community. Anybody want to ask anything?
I'll ask the same question. So one of the feedback that I've heard a lot in our community is lack of communication. Parents don't know what's going on, or sometimes even they feel like the students don't really know what's going on. So what can we do to make that better and address that?
I think for one thing, we probably as a district, we need to have somebody that has some time to be able to take the pictures, to do the articles. We need to, just like I told Miss Bradbury there, we need to beat her chest like a big gorilla sometimes when our kids do good. People need to see that. They need to see what we're doing out there as good in the community. That's a third of the battle anyway. But somebody's going to have some time, not just to run by and do it and write a thing, and somebody's going to have to be responsible. And we're going to have to find either somebody or some time that somebody can do that and and do a good job and do a real good job with it. And that's what I would do. That's what I want to do anyway. And but a lot of times their parents, they don't know what's going on. You see this and they see that, and the more you can keep them parents informed, the better off you are as a school district and as a school board. They don't get as many calls. They don't get as many calls. Like I said, I give about everybody that I talk to, I give my cell phone number to them. And if they want to call me, they can call me anytime they want to. It don't bother me. I like to argue with people too sometimes. So sometimes I stop and harass people. They harass me, so I kind of harass them back.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
Oh, he's got a note card tonight. That's why he's in the suit.
Often, leadership positions require difficult decisions, whether that's changing an existing policy or way of doing things, or implementing new policies and procedures to be in compliance with laws or best practices for student or faculty success. Often, these decisions will be unpopular for a large group of people. Can you walk us through your deliberative process with regards to this issue?
Well, I think that there's always going to be issues that's going to be a hard sell to the community. But I think that it goes back to the same thing, the trust thing. For example, it took me 2 years at Augusta for my parents to actually trust me to put kids on the bus and send them off to where I had to go to. before they realize that I want to take care of them. I want to be there to take care of them. Also, there's things there's policies that will be implemented that the parents don't see. The phone policies fixing to be. That's going to be a hard thing with parents because everybody's used to having a cell phone, and but state law says no cell phones, and it's going to be there have to be exceptions. I'm sure if it's in their IEP or something like that, that's probably going to be unpopular with a lot of parents because they're used to being on the phone calling and the kids answering the phone, and that would probably going to be something that. But you've just got to make sure that those things that are implemented, that the first time you might say, hey, we can't do this, you're going to, call the parent. And after that, you're going to have to, and it's hard sometimes to tell parents that we can't do this anymore. And, bus riding policies with basketball teams, I've had them come to me and the coach says they got to ride the bus. That's his thing. Well, if that's his rule, if he makes that rule and I say, okay, you can do that because I don't want my kids being checked out with something by their girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever. If he's got that rule, then that might not be a popular thing with that either way, but you got to support that. I think that you've got to be very careful with what you put out there. I mean, as far as, but now, like I said, I've got a lot of scars on me, and all of them come from fishing. So I know that sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, and you can't back off. I'm not a big backer offer, I try to take things on head on. And this, I'm one of them guys that what you see is what you get. This is the way I am. I'm going to tell you the truth. You might not want to hear it, but I'm going to tell you the truth about this. And we might not agree, but at least you're going to be able to have your say. I'm going to be able to have my say. I don't care for parents approaching me and talking to me about anything they want to talk to me about. And I'm going to talk to them about it. I'm not, you don't have to make an appointment with me. You just, if my red truck's on this campus somewhere, I'm here. So just have my secretary to find me. I'll meet. I think you got to do some of those things like that with tough decisions. Along with tough decisions, you got to be visible, and you got to be able to meet people.
Do you have an open door policy? Do you have an open door policy?
Yes, you don't have to make. If I'm on this campus, you need to meet with me. There might be somebody in my office. You might have to wait a few minutes, but I'm available.
Okay, thank you.
For parents, our staff.
Any other questions? Anyone else? All right. Well, with that being said, then we will enter into executive session at 5:28.
Davis, can you sign that for me? Right there.